My cousin thought she could steal my jacket and rebrand it as hers on Instagram. Big mistake, because that jacket had a secret. A few months ago, my cousin Maya asked if she could borrow my favorite jacket for a work event. This isn't some designer piece, but it's that jacket. One that just fits right. I found it years ago at a thrift store. Had the sleeves tailored perfectly. It's the cheap buttons with vintage ones. And honestly, it became part of my identity. The thrift store had been one of those hole-in-the-wall places in Brooklyn. The kind where dust particles dance in the afternoon light and everything smells like mothballs and forgotten memories. I'd been having the worst week. My boss had passed me over for a promotion. My apartment lease was up for renewal with a rent hike I couldn't afford. And I just ended a relationship that had been limping along for months. That jacket, hanging on a crooked wire hanger between a sequin blazer and a moth-eaten peacoat, had caught my eye like a lighthouse beam through fog. The fabric was a deep charcoal wool blend, substantial without being heavy, with a subtle herringbone pattern that revealed itself only when the light hit it just right. The original buttons had been cheap plastic, the kind that screamed fast fashion from 2 decades ago, but the cut was impeccable. I'd taken it to Mrs. Chen's alterations shop on the corner of my block, where she'd narrowed the sleeves with the precision of a surgeon and replaced those tragic buttons with genuine horn ones I'd found at a specialty notion store in the village. Each button had cost me $12. I'd saved up for them. That jacket had been with me through job interviews, first dates, gallery openings, and quiet Sunday mornings at my favorite coffee shop. It had witnessed my life transforming from chaos to something resembling purpose when I wore it. I stood differently, spoke differently. It wasn't magic, it was confidence. The kind that comes from knowing you look exactly like the person you want to be. Maya swore it would be one night. I promised no food, no drinks. I'll hang it up properly. I'll drop it off tomorrow morning. She even did that hand over heart thing. She'd shown up at my apartment on a Thursday evening, her hair perfectly styled in those effortless beach waves that actually take an hour to create, wearing designer jeans that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Maya had always been like that, polished, curated. Eldubives, a two-neighbor place on the Elskir end. The kind of person who treated life like an Instagram feed that needed constant updating. We'd grown up together, shared childhood summers at our grandmother's lake house, built blanket forts and whispered secrets in the dark. But somewhere along the way, our paths had diverged. She'd gone into marketing for a luxury skincare brand, all corporate lunches and influencer events, while I'd chosen the nonprofit sector, working for an arts education organization that barely kept the lights on but actually changed kids' lives. "You're literally saving my life right now," she'd said, reaching for the jacket with perfectly manicured hands. Blush pink, squared tips. This work thing is so last minute, and everything in my closet is too summery or too dressy. This is perfect, sophisticated, but not trying too hard. You know, I'd hesitated, my hand lingering on the collar. Something in my gut had whispered a warning. That ancient evolutionary instinct that kept our ancestors from eating the wrong berries. But Maya was family. You don't say no to family over a jacket, no matter how much you love it. That's what I told myself. Anyway, against my better judgment, I handed it over. Next day. Oh, Migul. I totally forgot. I'll bring it next week. I swear next week. I'm out of town. Sorry. The text had come at 10:47 a.m. Right when she promised to drop it off. I'd been waiting by my apartment window like an idiot, Coffee getting cold. Already mentally planning what I'd wear to my afternoon meeting instead. I'd thrown on a cardigan that made me look like someone's disappointed aunt and spent the entire meeting feeling slightly off balance. Like I'd forgotten something crucial. The next week text had come with zero apology. Just a shrugging emoji. The out-of-town message had been even worse, sent from a geotagged brunch spot 3 neighborhoods away. Her location casually betraying her lie. I'd felt something shift in my chest. A small crack forming in the foundation of trust I'd built with her over 27 years. Then the tone shifted. She started getting snippy with me like I was annoying for wanting my own stuff back, like I was the problem. "Why are you being so weird about this?" she texted after my third polite reminder. "It's giving obsessive energy, TBH. That message had landed like a slap. Suddenly. I was the unreasonable one. I was the person making a big deal out of nothing. Being materialistic. Caring too much about possessions. The gaslighting was so smooth, I'd almost believed it myself. Maybe I was being too attached to a piece of clothing. Maybe I needed to relax. Be more generous. Stop keeping score. But then I'd remember the feeling of her eyes when I'd handed it over. Something calculating beneath the gratitude. Like she'd been testing me, seeing how much she could take. 2 weeks later. I'm scrolling through Instagram at midnight, and there she is wearing my jacket. Caption. New staple. Obsessed heart. White heart star. The photograph had been professionally composed, Maya standing in front of an exposed brick wall. Golden hour light streaming through an unseen window. The jacket draped over her shoulders like she'd been born wearing it. Her head was tilted at that practiced influencer angle. The one that made cheekbones look sharper and eyes look bigger. She'd styled it with a silk camisole and high-waisted trousers I recognized from her luxury haul video from last month. The jacket, my jacket, looked expensive in her hands. Aspirational. Like something her 15,000 followers might actually be able to buy if they just knew where to look. People in the comments are eating it up. "Where did you get this?" "Drop the link," she replied. Vintage fine star. Each comment felt like a tiny theft. "This is stunning on you." "Okay, but I need this in my life. You have the best style." Seriously. And Maya. Responding to each one with casual lies. Building an entire narrative around a jacket she'd stolen. Not borrowed. Stolen. Because that's what it was now, when you take something and refuse to return it. When you lie about its origins and claim it as your own. That's theft. My hands were shaking. I texted her immediately. "Hey, that's my jacket in your post. Can you please bring it back this week?" I'd stared at the message for 5 minutes before sending it. Rewriting it a dozen times. Too aggressive. Too passive. Too emotional. Too cold. I'd finally settled on something I hoped sounded firm, but not confrontational. Clear, but not accusatory. I'd even added a casual "hey" at the beginning. Like we were still cousins who trusted each other. Like she hadn't just paraded my stolen property in front of thousands of strangers. Her response made my blood boil. "Lol, it's literally just a jacket." 3 dots had appeared immediately. Disappeared. Reappeared. I'd watched them pulse like a heartbeat. Knowing whatever came next would be bad. When the message finally landed, I'd read it 3 times. Feeling my face go hot. Then cold. Then hot again. Just a jacket. As if the value of something was measured only in dollars and designer labels. as if the hours I'd spent searching for the perfect buttons. The money I'd saved for alterations. The memories woven into its fibers meant nothing, as if my feelings were silly. Yes. Etienne. Slubbling. Chapter numbers into the day. End of. Wixen. Yesterday. Not worth considering. Then came the Gaslight special. Maybe we have similar ones. I honestly don't even remember borrowing anything. You're making drama over nothing. The audacity of it had stolen my breath. Editing our shared reality like a video file, she was rewriting history in real time. I'd been there. I'd handed her the jacket, we'd had an entire conversation about it, and now she was suggesting it had never happened. That my memory was faulty. That I was creating problems where none existed. That message made me feel insane. I'd sat on my apartment floor, phone clutched in my hand, wondering if I was losing my mind. Had I imagined the whole thing? Was there some alternate universe where I'd just seen someone wearing a similar jacket and jumped to paranoid conclusions? I'd opened our text thread, scrolled back to that Thursday, found her message. OMG, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll take such good care of it. I promise. Screenshot. Saved. Evidence. But then something clicked. I remembered something about that jacket. Something she didn't know about. The memory had surfaced slowly, like something rising from deep water. 3 years ago, after my favorite scarf had disappeared at a family Christmas party only to show up on my cousin Jennifer's Instagram 2 months later. Oh my God, I had no idea that was yours. I thought someone left it. I'd made a decision. I'd gone to a craft store, bought a roll of white cotton tape and a permanent fabric marker, and spent an evening sewing tiny labels into everything I cared about. The labels were small, barely an inch wide, and I'd stitched them into inner seams where they'd never be seen during normal wear. My first name and the year of acquisition written in my careful print. Really, 2022, hidden in the collar of the jacket. Riley 2021 in the lining of my good winter coat. Riley 2023 in the inner pocket of my vintage leather bag. Just insurance. Just evidence. Just a small act of self-protection in a family where boundaries seem to dissolve like sugar in hot tea. And suddenly, I wasn't angry anymore. I was patient. The anger had transformed into something colder, sharper, more focused. Anger makes you reactive, sloppy, emotional. But patience is strategic. Patience understands that the best revenge isn't served hot or cold, but precisely calibrated to the moment of maximum impact. I stopped texting, I stopped arguing, I just waited. Every day that passed, I felt calmer, more centered. I'd catch myself smiling at random moments during my morning commute while making dinner in the middle of boring work meetings. My coworkers probably thought I'd started dating someone new. In a way, I'd fallen in love with the idea of justice, with the beautiful inevitability of consequences. I knew Maya, knew her patterns, her psychology, her need for external validation. She'd wear that jacket in public, probably soon. She'd want to show it off in real life, not just in carefully filtered photographs. And when she did, I'd be ready. 2 weeks crawled by. My aunt announced a casual family gathering. Coffee, desserts, everyone passing around my baby cousin. The invitation had come via the family group chat, the one that was constantly blowing up with memes from my uncle, recipe exchanges from my aunt, and random philosophical questions from my grandmother who just discovered ChatGPT. Sunday brunch at our place, my aunt had written. Nothing fancy, just us. Melissa's bringing the baby. Can't wait to squeeze those cheeks. The timing was perfect. Almost suspiciously perfect, like the universe had decided to participate in my revenge plot. Sunday was 3 days away. I'd confirmed my attendance immediately, watching as other family members added their thumbs-up emojis and heart reactions. Maya had responded 2 hours later with a casual, "I'll be there." I knew Maya would be there, and I had a feeling about what she'd wear. She'd want to make a statement. That was how Maya operated. Every appearance was a performance, every gathering an opportunity to reinforce her carefully constructed brand. The jacket had gotten her so much attention online. She'd want to see if it worked the same magic in person. She'd want to feel the eyes on her, hear the compliments, bask in the glow of being the best-dressed person in the room. I'd spent Saturday evening planning my outfit with military precision. Nothing too formal. This was a casual family brunch, and I didn't want to look like I was trying too hard. But nothing sloppy either. I'd settled on dark jeans, a soft cream sweater, and my favorite ankle boots. Understated, confident, the kind of outfit that said, "I have nothing to prove." The kind of outfit that would make Maya's stolen jacket stand out even more. Sure enough, she walks in wearing the jacket. She'd arrived 20 minutes late, her signature move, late enough to make an entrance, early enough to avoid causing actual offense. The door had swung open, and there she was, backlit by Sunday morning sunshine, wearing my jacket over a white turtleneck and black skinny jeans. She'd added a delicate gold necklace and earrings that caught the light. Her hair was in a messy bun that had probably taken 30 minutes to achieve. She looked, objectively, stunning. My jacket had never looked better, which somehow made the whole thing worse. She made eye contact with me, held it for a bit too long, and smirked. It was a challenge, a dare. Her eyes were saying, "I'm wearing your jacket, and what are you going to do about it? Make a scene? Look crazy in front of the whole family? Go ahead, I dare you." The smirk was slight, barely a curve of her lips, but unmistakable. She wanted me to react, wanted me to give her ammunition for her narrative. She'd already planted the seeds with our text exchange. I was dramatic, obsessive, materialistic, making something out of nothing. If I confronted her now, I'd be playing right into that script. I'd be the villain in her story, the jealous cousin who couldn't stand to see her looking good. She was daring me, testing me. I smiled back and sipped my coffee. The smile I gave her was genuine, warm even. It was the smile of someone who knows exactly how the movie ends while everyone else is still watching the opening credits. I lifted my mug, my aunt's good china, the floral pattern she only brought out for family, and took a slow, deliberate sip. The coffee was perfect, dark and rich, exactly how I liked it. She looked confused, maybe even disappointed. Her smirk faltered. Her eyes narrowed slightly, trying to read me, to understand why I wasn't taking the bait. I could practically see the gears turning in her head. Why isn't she upset? Why isn't she saying anything? Did she give up? Did I win? I wasn't reacting. She wanted the drama. But I had other plans. Drama was what she fed on, the oxygen that kept her social media presence alive. Family feuds, petty arguments, the kind of interpersonal conflict she could mine for content and sympathy. "You won't believe what my cousin did. Family drama is so exhausting. Why are people so materialistic?" But I wasn't going to give her that. I was going to give her something much worse. Public humiliation wrapped in such sweet, innocent packaging that she couldn't even complain about it without looking guilty. I waited until she was surrounded by relatives poking up compliments. It took about 15 minutes. Maya had made her rounds, hugging my aunt, cooing over baby Melissa. "She's so chunky, I'm obsessed," helping herself to the pastries my uncle had picked up from the Italian bakery on Mulberry Street. And then, inevitably, the compliments had started. "Maya, you look so put together," my aunt said, straightening the collar of the jacket. "Is this new?" "Love this color on you," said Jennifer, the scarf thief, apparently oblivious to the irony. "You always have such great style," my uncle added, which was sweet but misguided. Maya had glowed under the attention, soaking it in like a plant under a heat lamp. She touched the jacket's lapels, smoothed the sleeves, mentioned something about investing in classic pieces and sustainable fashion. Each lie had built on the last, creating a tower of falsehood that was about to come crashing down. Then I walked over, all sweetness, and said, "Oh my God, Maya, that jacket looks incredible on you. Where did you get it? I've been looking for something with that exact cut." My voice was honey sweet, touched with just the right amount of admiration and curiosity. I'd position myself in the center of the living room, where my grandmother was settled in her favorite armchair, where my aunt was refilling the coffee pot, where at least 6 family members were within easy earshot. Maya's face had lit up like Times Square on New Year's Eve. This was it. The public validation she'd been craving, the acknowledgement of her superior taste, and from me, the person she'd stolen from. The irony was delicious, and she was completely oblivious to it. Her eyes lit up. She practically glowed, right? I've had it forever, just never wore it until recently. The lie came so easily to her, so smoothly, like she'd been practicing it in the mirror. Her voice had that performative quality influencers use in videos, bright and enthusiastic, designed to engage an audience. She'd even added a little laugh, casual and carefree, the laugh of someone with absolutely nothing to hide. She said it loud enough for my aunt, 2 cousins, and my uncle to hear hook, line, and sinker. Everyone was listening now. My aunt had paused in pouring coffee, pot hovering over a cup. Jennifer had stopped mid-bite of her cannoli. Even my grandmother, who usually dozed through family gatherings, had perked up with interest. The stage was set. The audience was in place. All that remained was the performance. I leaned in closer like we were sharing a secret. No way can I see the inside real quick. I'm obsessed with how vintage pieces are constructed. I want to check the stitching. I'd pitch my voice lower, conspiratorial, girl to girl, like this was a perfectly normal request between 2 people who shared an interest in fashion, which, to be fair, it was. I'd borrowed clothes from friends before, examined the seams of thrift store finds, discussed construction techniques with other vintage enthusiasts. There was nothing weird about what I was asking. Except, of course, for the fact that I already knew exactly what I'd find inside. Her smile flickered. It's fine. You don't really need to. The first crack in her facade, her hand had moved almost involuntarily to the jacket's collar, protective, like she was shielding something precious. Her eyes had darted left, then right, looking for an escape route, a distraction, anything to redirect the conversation. But we were surrounded by family, all of them now interested in this little interaction, curious about what I wanted to see, why Maya suddenly looked so uncomfortable. "Oh, come on. Just a quick look," I said, already reaching for the collar. My voice was sugary sweet, but my heart was pounding. The adrenaline had hit my system like a shot of espresso straight to the veins. My hands were steady. I'd practiced this moment in my mind 100 times, but inside I was vibrating at a frequency only dogs could hear. This was it, the moment of truth. The culmination of 2 weeks of patience and planning. She tried to step back, but I'd already caught the fabric. My fingers had closed around the collar with the gentleness of someone handling a delicate artifact, which, in a way, I was. This wasn't about destroying the jacket, it was about revealing the truth. Maya had flinched slightly, her body language screaming discomfort, but she couldn't pull away without making a scene, without looking suspicious. "I just want to see how they finished the seam," I'd said to the room, maintaining my expression of innocent curiosity. Vintage construction is so different from modern fast fashion. I flipped the inner seam near the neckline, and there it was. Tiny cloth label, hand-stitched crooked because I'm no seamstress with my first name, and the year I bought it. The label sat there like a smoking gun, white cotton against the dark lining, my handwriting slightly uneven but completely legible. Really, 2022. 4 letters and 4 numbers that told the entire story. See, I've had clothes vanish at family gatherings before, so years ago, I started sewing little labels into anything I cared about, just insurance, and Maya had no idea. The practice had started as paranoia, then became habit, then evolved into a kind of meditation. Every time I sewed a label into something I loved, I was making a quiet statement. I see you. I know what you are. I'm protecting myself. Not with locks or cameras or confrontation, but with tiny pieces of fabric and permanent ink. Maya had never known because I'd never told anyone. It was my secret, my insurance policy, my ace in the hole. And now, finally, it was paying dividends. I didn't rip it off. I didn't shout. I just held the fabric open, turned to my aunt and said, "Oh, good, it is mine. I'm so relieved. I thought I'd lost it." My tone was light, casual, touched with genuine relief, as if I'd just found my missing car keys. No accusation, no anger, just a simple statement of fact delivered with a smile. The room went silent, that specific family silence where everyone stops chewing, stops talking, stops breathing. It was the silence of a record scratch in a movie, the moment when the party freezes and everyone realizes something significant has just happened. The air itself seemed to thicken, charged with anticipation and secondhand embarrassment. My uncle's coffee cup had stopped halfway to his mouth. Jennifer's eyes had gone wide. My grandmother had leaned forward in her chair, sensing drama the way sharks sense blood in water. Maya's face went through an entire emotional journey: confusion, realization, panic, then pure mortification. I watched it happen in real time, each emotion flickering across her features like slides in a projector. First, the confusion. What just happened? Then understanding, oh God, there's a label with her name. Then panic. Everyone's looking at me. And finally, the full weight of mortification. I've been caught in a lie in front of the entire family, and there's no way to talk my way out of this. Her skin had gone from its usual perfect complexion to a blotchy red, starting at her chest and climbing up her neck to her cheeks. Her mouth had opened, then closed, then opened again, like a fish gasping on a dock. She let out this awful, too loud laugh. "Oh my God, you're literally embarrassing me right now over a jacket." The laugh was performance, defense mechanism, a last-ditch attempt to reframe the narrative. She was trying to make me the villain again, the crazy cousin making a scene over nothing, humiliating her in front of family over something trivial. But her voice had cracked on the word literally, betraying her panic. And the laugh had gone on a beat too long, hollow and unconvincing, the kind of laugh that makes everyone in the room uncomfortable. I looked her dead in the eye. You embarrassed yourself when you decided stealing it was easier than returning it. My voice was calm, level, matter of fact. Not angry, not triumphant, just honest. I held her gaze, let the words sink in, let the family absorb the full weight of what had happened. This wasn't about a jacket anymore. It was about integrity, about respect, about the small betrayals that erode trust over time. Then I calmly took the jacket off her chair, slipped it on, and walked back to the kitchen like nothing happened. The jacket had still been warm from her body when I'd put it on, which should have felt weird, but instead felt like reclamation, like taking back a piece of myself I'd almost given up for lost. It fit perfectly, the way it always had, the sleeves exactly the right length, the shoulders sitting precisely where they should. I'd smoothed the lapels, adjusted the collar, and turned away from Maya's stricken face. Behind me, I could hear the murmur of voices starting up, hushed conversations about what had just transpired. But I'd walked to the kitchen with my head high, my spine straight, the jacket settling on my shoulders like armor. She tried to follow me, whispering furiously, but my aunt cut her off. "Maya, why would you lie about something so small?" I hadn't turned around, but I'd heard every word. My aunt's voice had carried that particular quality of disappointment that only mothers and mother figures can achieve, the tone that makes you feel about 6 years old and deeply ashamed of yourself. "It's not what it looks like," Maya had started, but her voice had been weak, unconvincing. "Then what is it?" my aunt had asked. "Because it looks like you borrowed your cousin's jacket, refused to return it, lied about it being yours, and then wore it to a family gathering knowing full well who it belonged to." The disappointment in my aunt's voice was sharper than any insult. That was the thing about my aunt. She didn't yell, didn't rage, didn't make scenes. She just stated facts in this quiet, devastated tone that made you feel like the worst person who'd ever lived. She'd used that voice when Maya had cheated on a high school exam, when she'd lied about her whereabouts at 17, when she'd borrowed money from her father's wallet. It was the voice of someone who'd expected better and been let down. Maya's eyes darted around. No one was on her side. I'd risked a glance back from the kitchen doorway and seen her face, seen the moment she realized she was completely alone in this. Jennifer wouldn't meet her eyes, probably remembering the scarf incident. My uncle was shaking his head slowly. My grandmother had pressed her lips into a thin line of disapproval. Even baby Melissa seemed to be judging her, which was probably projection, but still. There was no one to back up her story. No one to say, maybe there's been a misunderstanding. No one to offer her the benefit of the doubt. Because there was a label with my name on it, sewn into a jacket she'd claimed to have owned forever, and there was no explaining that away. She grabbed her purse, muttered something about needing to leave, and slammed the door. The sound of the door hitting the frame had echoed through the apartment, final and definitive. Through the window, I'd watched her stumble toward her car, still wearing her white turtleneck and skinny jeans, arms wrapped around herself where the jacket should have been. The gathering had continued after she left, but subdued, everyone processing what had happened. My aunt had apologized to me 3 times. Jennifer had confessed about the scarf and asked if I wanted it back. I did. My uncle had hugged me and said, "Good for you, standing up for yourself." I'd stayed for another hour, eaten 2 more cannoli than I should have, and cuddled baby Melissa, who smelled like baby powder in innocence and had absolutely no idea she'd just witnessed a masterclass in strategic revenge. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "You're petty and vindictive, and you care more about stuff than family." The text had come through as I was driving home, my jacket on the passenger seat beside me like a rescued hostage. I'd pulled over to read it properly, to give it the attention it deserved. The accusation was classic Maya. Deflect, project, blame. I was the problem for caring about being stolen from. I was the villain for wanting basic respect. I was the one destroying family bonds, not her, not the person who'd actually committed the theft and told the lies. I typed back, "I care about basic respect. You could have just returned it." Short, simple, irrefutable. I'd stared at the message for a moment before hitting send, knowing it would probably be the last thing I ever said to her, wanting it to be exactly right. She never replied. The silence from Maya had been absolute. No texts, no calls, no passive-aggressive Instagram stories. It was as if she'd decided that pretending I didn't exist was easier than acknowledging what she'd done. Fine by me. What I hadn't expected was the text from Jennifer on Wednesday morning. "Coffee? We need to talk." I'd met her at our usual spot, a small cafe in Park Slope that served overpriced lattes and mediocre pastries, but had the best people watching in the borough. Jennifer was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window, her expression nervous. "I owe you an apology," she'd said before I'd even sat down. "Actually, I owe you a massive apology. That scarf wasn't the first thing. There was also that vintage brooch you thought you'd lost, and those leather gloves, and, God, I feel so stupid saying this out loud, your grandmother's recipe book." My grandmother's recipe book. The one with her handwritten notes in the margins. The one I'd been searching for months. The one I'd assumed I'd somehow misplaced during a move. "I didn't know what I was doing," Jennifer had continued, words tumbling out in a rush. "Or I did know, but I didn't think it was that bad, like we're family, so it's not really stealing, it's just borrowing indefinitely," which sounds insane when I say it out loud. Watching Maya on Sunday, seeing everyone's faces, seeing your face. She trailed off, looking miserable. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be someone people have to hide their belongings from. I'd sipped my latte, considering. "You're giving everything back?" Already in my car, I was too embarrassed to bring it all in. The recipe book, the brooch, the gloves, even some costume jewelry I think belonged to you but might have been someone else's. Honestly, my apartment is like a museum of things I've borrowed from people, and I'm horrified at myself. Despite everything, I'd smiled. "You know what I appreciate? That you're not trying to justify it or make excuses. You're not saying I'm being dramatic or materialistic." Because you're not. You're being a person with boundaries, and I violated them. We violated them. Jennifer had fidgeted with her coffee cup. "Maya called me yesterday, wanted me to back her up, say you'd always been weird about possessions, that this was a pattern with you. I told her I couldn't do that. That's when I realized how far down the rabbit hole I'd gone." We'd sat there for a while, talking through why she'd taken things. A weird combination of entitlement and impulsivity, plus some envy she was working through in therapy. How she was planning to make amends to other people she'd stolen from. What boundaries we needed to establish going forward. By the time we left, I had my grandmother's recipe book back, slightly worn but intact, and something that felt tentatively like the beginning of a real friendship, one based on honesty instead of assumed family obligation. The Instagram DM came from an account I didn't recognize, @StyleEthicsDaily. The profile described themselves as a fashion accountability platform that called out influencer behavior. Hi, Riley. We were sent screenshots of a conversation between you and your cousin about a jacket she claimed was hers on Instagram. We've also received screenshots of her telling people to stop asking where it came from because the brand doesn't exist anymore and it was a vintage find she can't source. Would you be willing to talk about what happened? I'd stared at the message for a long time. This was the nuclear option, the one that would take the whole situation public, that would potentially ruin Maya's carefully crafted influencer image. Part of me, the hurt, angry part, wanted to burn it all down. Wanted her followers to know exactly what kind of person she was. But another part, the part that had gotten what it actually wanted, my jacket back, my family's understanding, some restored boundaries, knew that going public would only feed the drama Maya thrived on. It would give her a narrative. The wronged influencer. The victim of cancel culture. The martyr persecuted over a simple misunderstanding. I typed back, "Thanks for reaching out. I appreciate that you care about accountability in the influencer space. The situation has been resolved privately within my family, and I'd prefer to keep it that way, but I encourage your platform to keep doing what you're doing. Integrity matters." They'd responded with understanding and respect. The conversation ended there. 2 weeks later, I was at work in the middle of a meeting about our fall programming schedule when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Maya, using a different number because I knew you'd ignore me. I'm going to therapy. Not because of you, but because of me. My therapist says I have issues with boundaries and entitlement stemming from childhood stuff I won't get into. Anyway, she suggested I make amends to people I've hurt. So this is me doing that. I'm sorry I took your jacket and lied about it. I'm sorry I gaslit you and tried to make you feel crazy. I'm sorry I prioritized my image over our relationship. You didn't deserve that. I don't expect you to forgive me or want to be in my life. Just wanted you to know I'm working on being better." I'd read it 3 times during the bathroom break, analyzing each sentence for hidden barbs or half-hearted deflections. But it seemed genuine, raw even. The kind of apology that comes from actual self-reflection, not damage control. I'd sat with it for a few days before responding. "I appreciate you saying that. Real accountability takes courage, and I hope therapy helps you figure out your stuff. I'm not ready to be close again, but I don't hate you. I just need time and consistent change behavior before I can trust you. Good luck with the work." Her reply had been simple. "That's fair. Thank you." Sunday family brunch had become a regular thing again, though Maya never attended. According to my aunt, she was taking space to work on herself, which was probably code for too embarrassed to face everyone. I'd arrived wearing the jacket, because it was November now, and cold, and the jacket was perfect for exactly this weather. No one commented on it. It had stopped being a symbol and gone back to being just a piece of clothing I loved. Baby Melissa was bigger now, starting to babble and grab at everything within reach. She'd latched onto the jacket's button, her tiny fingers surprisingly strong, and I'd let her play with it while I held her. "She has good taste," my aunt had said, smiling. "That really is a beautiful jacket." "Thanks," I'd replied. "I've had it forever." It was a joke, a callback, and my aunt had laughed. The kind of laugh that says, "We've processed this and moved on and can find humor in it now." Later, my grandmother had pulled me aside, her arthritic fingers surprisingly strong as they gripped my hand. "I'm proud of you," she'd said. "Not for embarrassing Maya, though Lord knows she had it coming, but for knowing your worth, for understanding that you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. That's a lesson that took me 60 years to learn. You figured it out at 27. I'd hugged her, careful of her fragile bones, and felt something settle in my chest. Not satisfaction exactly, more like peace. 3 months later, I was at the thrift store, the same one where I'd found the jacket, when I spotted it. A vintage leather bag, buttery soft, exactly the right shade of cognac brown, with brass hardware that had developed the perfect patina. It was slightly overpriced at $40, but I could already see how it would look with my favorite jeans and boots. I bought it, took it to Mrs. Chin for a small repair on the strap, and then in my apartment that evening, I sewed a small white label into the inner pocket. Riley 2025. Not because I expected it to be stolen, but because it was mine. Because I'd chosen it, invested in it, would care for it. The label was no longer insurance against theft. It was a mark of ownership, a reminder that I had the right to claim the things I loved. The jacket hung in my closet next to the leather bag, both of them bearing my name in tiny, crooked stitches. I'd learned something through all of this, something more valuable than the jacket itself, that boundaries aren't cruel, that protecting yourself isn't selfish, and that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply refusing to let someone else's bad behavior change who you are. Maya had wanted to take something from me, and for a while she had. But in the end, I'd taken it back, along with something more important, the understanding that I deserved respect, from family and from myself. The jacket was just a jacket. But it was my jacket. 6 months later, the Instagram notification was unexpected. Maya had tagged me in a post. I'd almost ignored it. We hadn't spoken since the apology text exchange, hadn't interacted on social media, had existed in separate orbits even within our small family galaxy. But curiosity won. The post was a photo of Maya sitting on a therapy office couch, no filter, no perfect lighting, just harsh fluorescent glow and honest exhaustion. The caption read, 6 months of therapy and I'm finally ready to talk about the jacket incident that some of you witnessed in real time. Yes, I stole from my cousin. Yes, I lied about it. Yes, I gaslit her when she called me out. No, it wasn't just a jacket. It was a symptom of bigger issues I'm working through. Entitlement, boundary violations, and a desperate need for external validation that made me do increasingly awful things to people I loved. This isn't a redemption arc. I'm not asking for forgiveness or sympathy. I'm just being honest about my mess because maybe someone else is out there doing similar things and telling themselves it's not that bad. It is that bad. It matters. And you can change if you're willing to do the uncomfortable work. Thanks to my cousin Riley for holding up a mirror when I needed it most, even though that wasn't her job. And sorry to everyone who watched this train wreck unfold. Working on being better. Slowly, imperfectly, but actually working on it. The comments were a mix of support, criticism, and people sharing their own stories of boundaries and family dynamics. A few of her former followers had unfollowed, but new ones had appeared. People interested in authenticity over aesthetics. I didn't comment, didn't like the post, just closed the app and went back to my life. But later that evening, I sent her a text. Proud of you for being honest. That couldn't have been easy. Her response came an hour later. Nothing about this has been easy, but thank you. That means a lot. We weren't close, might never be close again. But we'd found something more valuable than forced family unity, genuine respect, earned through honesty and accountability. I looked at my jacket, hanging on its special hanger in my closet, and smiled. Sometimes the best endings aren't happy. They're just honest.